Well, Greg said, oh, rather, okay. Greg said we're supposed to be close to theirs so that Noelle can fit into this mic. So I'm supposed to pretend that I like her. I do like her.
Honey, do.
Oh, okay. Well, we're so glad that we discovered the Corner Coffee up in Camden because we can walk to church every Sunday, and that's huge. But something that's even huger than that is we really love our neighborhood. It's a very diverse neighborhood, diverse not only in culture, but in age and background and different ideas, beliefs. From the beginning, we knew that God was calling us to our immediate neighborhood because He wanted us to share the love of God to people who normally don't attend assemblies like this. We began by having prayer walks, meeting our neighbors, remembering their names. We had to write them down. My memory's kind of going. And keeping our eyes open to different ways that we could serve them, different needs that they might have. All, anywhere from shoveling snow to taking ice off of windshields or loaning out our yard equipment, our rotor tiller to our neighbors in the summer. Noelle and I distributed Christmas cookies, and we initiated national night outs and other block parties like chili cook-offs, and just to build community. We've had neighbors over for a meal and backyard barbecues. And our goal in all of this was to build trusting relationships that would lead to taking the time to listen and learn from our neighbors, to listen to their stories, sharing our stories, and eventually sharing His story, bits and pieces along the way. I met, we'll just end with a story. I met Lou working on his car in our back alley. He and his wife were renting the upper duplex, 2 houses from our house, and he could not start off a morning without his morning coffee. And when his coffee ran out, there'd be a little soft knock on our back door, and he'd either borrow coffee or eventually he might even come in and share a cup of coffee with me. I learned that he came from a rough background, grew up in Chicago, had a tough beginning in life, was basically raised up by his grandparents. He, of course, eventually along the way, shortly after we met, Noelle met Cynthia, his wife, and they immediately hit it off. Anyway, look.
Cynthia, of course, Gary, they live 2 doors down, so it was really easy to meet her. She's kind of friendly and bubbly, and we like
just like her.
Hit it off right away. And we began to share our stories and our life and our background with each other. And she's had her share of hardship. She had lived through a broken marriage. This was her second marriage. And she also had a son in prison. She lost her home in foreclosure. So she and I could be real with each other. She's also a servant, and when we hosted this national night out, she was right there and offered to serve and help us cook food or bring out folding chairs or whatever. And she just was a real delight. And she also hosted one time a Kwanzaa. I don't know if you guys know what Kwanzaa is, but it's a celebration of African American culture. And she invited Gary and I to come to her home, and she had it just decorated with pictures of African American heroes. She had tables set out. One display table was on religion, and They had a Quran next to a Bible, and it was just really neat to understand more of her culture. She had her family, their blended family was there. They had a delicious pot of greens and beans on the stove, which I really love. And anyway, it was just really a neat way to see their life. And then I eventually invited her to a Bible study that I had with another neighbor. It was just really neat to share our thoughts over the Bible and our questions and be honest with one another. And recently, it was her birthday, and she works at a fast food restaurant in downtown Minneapolis on Broadway. And so Gary and I just surprised her and ran in there during her work hours, hugged her, kissed her, gave her a little gift, and just to be fun. She was shocked. Anyway, Gary and I want you to know that we're the ones that gain in sharing in our neighborhood. People think, oh, you're really nice, and I hope we're nice, but we're the receivers. We're the receivers in our neighborhood from all the dear people that we get to know, and we look for what God is. We're all made in His image. We look for what way He's made them to give to us and affirm them in who they are. So.
Yeah, as Noelle was sharing, it's the journey has been very rewarding and enjoyable, though hard at times, sometimes draining. But as we become willing channels for His love, we discover that our own lives are being deepened by His compassion, and we're being transformed. It's just easy to, like we were many years ago when it was in a dormitory situation, you could just avoid all the hard people. But in neighbors, you can't avoid the hard people. God put them there for you to love. So we all have different giftings and capacity, but anyone can reach out to their neighbors in their own creative ways and lifestyles and capacity. It may even just be one or two neighbors that we can reach out to. Acts 4:13 emphasizes this one. It says, when they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized that they're unschooled, ordinary men, like all of us, they're astonished. But they took note that they had been with Jesus. And that's what deepens our walk with Jesus, as we love others with the love of Jesus. So the question for your tables, what is your next step in connecting with a neighbor who has different ideas, beliefs, or background? It may be somebody that you're comfortable with, or it may be that hard neighbor that you are trying to avoid. Yeah.